Hey, good morning, everybody. It is day 81 of spiritual healthcare. Welcome to all of you. I hope you guys had a great evening yesterday. Had a really, really good day. I hope you guys had a really good Monday. Tuesday is shaping up like it's doing pretty well, so that's exciting. I don't know what everybody's Tuesday is looking like where you are, but I mean, it's looking pretty good over here, so I can't complain. Good morning to everybody logging in. Good morning, Kaz and Marge and Patricia. Good morning to everyone. Hi, how are you? I hope you guys have had I hope you had a great Monday. I hope you had a great Monday. My Monday was it was very strange. My Monday was very strange. A few things to cover today, including some really, really good questions about skeptics and skepticism and how to handle them, and why some people are so adamant about this stuff just not existing and whatever. So anyway, some really great questions. Another really interesting tidbit today about Paranormal 911 as well, and I'm going to cover that with you guys also because there seems to be like this weird thing with Travel Channel going on. Good morning to Brandy and Shadow. Good morning, Marge. Nice to see you. Brandy says it's super hot where she is. Oh, that sucks. We're not too hot right now. We're like 21 Celsius here right now. So we're like 70s for you guys. So we're not too bad. Good morning, Dan. Good morning, Sally. Marge says my hair looks really good with my dress. Thank you so much. This dress, it's funny actually, because this dress I actually, it's by an amazing company from the States called the Fairies Pajamas, and I love their stuff because it's all cotton, which does really well with fire performing. So I buy a lot from the Fairies Pajamas. They're fantastic people. They have like a free trade program and all sorts, like they're amazing. And so I ended up putting in one of the photos of my fire performing, and I ended up winning. I ended up winning this dress, which I was excited about that. It was super cool. Good morning, Sally. Good morning, Jay. Good morning, Nigel. Nice to see you guys. As I say, today is going to be, it's interesting because as I want to talk about skeptics versus believers, and cover why some people are just so adamant that this stuff is not real. Which makes no sense to me, but but we're gonna cover all that stuff, and I'm gonna talk a little bit about Paranormal 911 today because there's been this weird, like, I don't know what's going on with Travel Channel right now, but I've had a number of people now message and email about this. So we're going to go down the quantum mechanics hole a little bit too, the rabbit hole of quantum physics. There's like a bunch of things today. That's gonna be really good. And then later this afternoon, I'm gonna be posting another fire video for you guys with a lesson about holding space. So we'll watch for that later today. Once I'm able to get over to the garage, and I'll post that up, film that, and post it up for you guys. Because let me tell you, like, it's crazy how much fire has to like teach us when it comes to our breath, our presence, being focused, understanding how to still ourselves so that we can listen to the flow and the motion of the universe, and to be able to get in touch with who we are, and understanding the concept of holding space. And it's really cool. So I'll post that for you guys later on. So I wanted to start on today. Oh, good morning, Lucy. Nice to see you all the way from Monterey, California. You guys are probably really warm there too, hey? You guys are probably getting really warm weather. And good morning, Sally. I noticed Sally's come on. There's so many people. Hello to anybody that I've missed as well, because I know there's sometimes like all these names pop up and then I miss you guys. So hello to everybody that's made it this morning. So the first thing that I wanted to cover was this whole deal with Paranormal 911 right now. It's really interesting because what people are noticing with the Travel Channel is that it seems to, and because I don't get Travel Channel, I'm in Canada, we have all the shows air on a network called T&E Network. So we don't know what's going on with Travel Channel at all. But what's interesting is that people have been saying that Paranormal 911 is starting to be missing from the Travel Channel schedule. And we don't know exactly like what per se is going on right now. It could just be, a mid-season break or something like that. We don't know. Production doesn't seem to has gotten no word about it. because I am asking around and things like that. But we're not sure. I know television schedules right now are going kind of nuts with the protesting and stuff like that going on right now. So I have no idea. I don't have any information on it other than the fact that it seems to be things are getting massively reorganized. Stick with it. It is now available for those of you guys who have Amazon Prime. It is available on Amazon Prime now in the States. Canada doesn't seem to have it on our Prime yet, but it seems to be on Amazon Prime in the US on Amazon.com. So you guys can definitely catch it there. All the episodes and whatnot that have aired are now on Amazon Prime. So it's a really good thing. But for some reason, Travel Channel, I don't know what's going on with that. We're not told anything. It's so funny because people always ask me questions about what's airing and what's going to air. I have no idea. I'm told nothing, and half the time our producers aren't told anything either. We create the show and then the network takes it and then does what it's going to do with it, and we never know what's going on. So we get nothing. we get left in the dark. We just create the stuff. We don't get a say as to what happens. So I don't know. So anyway, so that's the word right now. If I get more information, you guys will have more information. So Haunted Hospital seems to be exactly the same as to whatever it's doing with Haunted Hospital seems to be doing its thing, and it's putzing along there okay. So who knows, right? Television is a crazy, crazy world, guys. It's a crazy world, and everything's up, down, and all over the place. So yeah, that's the word on that. But anyway, the question that I thought was really great for today, and I thought this was really interesting, this came in from a website called 20 Questions, and I loved this. And they had asked, sometimes skeptics bend over backwards to make arguments against paranormal explanations. Are those skeptics being irrational or more rational than the true believers? I loved this because I thought this opened up a whole can of worms, first of all, about a bunch of things, because I get asked questions similar to this often. Is what do you do when you've got, when skeptics come up with, different information, or, they want to have an argument or something like that. So I thought this would be a really great topic today, because not only is it prevalent, I think, within the world of the paranormal, but I think there's a translation into the sort of everyday stuff that we deal with and that we're dealing with right now, in the world, online, and that kind of thing. I think there's a really great translation here that is beneficial. So what I've noticed, specifically in relation to the paranormal side of things, is that often when I have people who are skeptical and looking, I would say not a skeptic, but somebody who has decided that this stuff doesn't exist. I think a skeptic is somebody who's looking at things a little bit more critically, but the people who have decided that that's the way it is, this doesn't happen, paranormal doesn't exist, that's it. I find when those people come, usually those people, first of all, don't come to me to challenge me to start with. They really don't. Because I think they know they're not really going to get the argument that they want to get out of me. But what I find very interesting is that when the education or the facts are put in front of them, I find that the typical response is either anger or shutdown. And you guys have probably had this happen in your experience with people just in general, right? Where you've either, you've presented a factual statement or something like that with no heat, no judgment, no nothing, just to counter what information the person's telling you, and it's immediately met with anger and bite back and reaction and whatnot. And I find this often in the paranormal world also, where instead of being able to then support their argument with current information, they either don't have the current information, they haven't read about it, they're just miseducated in the process, or whatever has been challenged has challenged a core paradigm within them. So I find that the people who want to fight, the people that want the argument and the yelling and the screaming and the freaking out and whatnot, and the ones who just can't seem to get their head around the concepts, often are having trouble getting their head around concepts in their own physical experience. So this is something I'm always very conscious of, because when I have people who are coming to me with that energy, like, as I say, it's very rare, I don't usually get it at all, but when they come to me with that energy, I immediately know that the problem is not in the information. The problem is that some sort of paradigm that they've got going about their world, or they're struggling to work with in their world, is being challenged. And when people's paradigms start to get challenged, what happens is that they feel like their beingness, their experience of the world is getting attacked. So because they don't know how to deal with it, they go into defensive mode very, very quickly. So it's very interesting. So when we have to begin to see it as almost like a level of PSI, right? So in science, you have pressure per square inch, right? You have pressure per square inch, where everything has a breaking point. Everything has got a breaking point. You put pressure on something for a certain amount of time, and then bam, everything has got a different PSI. It's funny because I really got into this, of course, with my Python Galen, because that's how, of course, Pythons are restricting and kill their prey, right? It's all pressure per square inch. So it's interesting, and every single different snake has a different PSI. They have a different PSI which they exert on their food in order to stop the heart of the food. Most people think that they're suffocating it, but it's actually they're stopping the heart. So everything has a different PSI, right? And every person is like that too. Everybody's got this breaking point. And even the people who don't think they have a breaking point, trust me, you got a breaking point. It's in there. It's in there somewhere. Everybody's got that different PSI. And the problem with this is that when we're not acknowledging that, when we're not really in tune with what those limits are, then we put limitations on the thoughts that we're having. Then what ends up happening is that we reach that breaking point a lot sooner. Source energy, non-physical energy, it doesn't have a PSI. It doesn't have a breaking point, right? It doesn't. It doesn't have to go to sleep. It doesn't have to rest. It doesn't have to do any of this stuff. It doesn't have a breaking point. But we do. And when we start to think on the levels of limitation and the levels of lack, and we don't have that space in order to expand or change or alter the paradigms that we're thinking, then oftentimes we get into this super defensive mode where we're just attacking people, and it doesn't work. People don't learn, and then the people that are coming to you, the sort of the skeptics that are coming to you with that energy, it's not about the phenomenon. It has nothing to do with that. They're trying to right their world. They're trying to establish something that's physical, that they can comprehend and have control over. And it really does become a control thing. It's really interesting, because here's the other part of this, is that, the question today was about the idea of, are skeptics being irrational or more irrational than the true believers? And I think there is, number one, there's a healthy balance, right? There is really a healthy balance. And not all skeptics come to the table with angry energy either. There's plenty of topics with the paranormal that I can honestly say I'm skeptical about. I think we need to go into paranormal phenomenon with Occam's razor. I think we need to pay attention to, sometimes the easiest explanation is the explanation before we start, muddling it all up with a lot of crazy. We have to be aware of that as well. But there's also something else that I think oftentimes skeptics they kind of fly over when they're analyzing this phenomenon and projects and stuff like that that have to do with paranormal, and that is the observer effect. So the problem with science is that we forget that we create our reality, and we begin to respond to that said reality, right? So when we get a bunch of different experiments, and those different experiments, prove something for us over and over and over again, we tend to then focus our thoughts directly around those results. But have you ever noticed that as we go along, you'll get maybe 2 or 3 other people that start doing the same experiment, and they end up with completely opposing results, like completely opposing. It can be the same thing, can be, same conditions, same everything, and all of a sudden it's not repeatable anymore, right? So it's very interesting, because when we look at people like John Van Neumann, he was like the quantum physics Bible guy. Like, this guy wrote the book on quantum physics, right? And he came up with something that was very interesting as he was moving through these experiments and these projects, and he realized that as people were observing the effects that were happening in these experiments, that they were changing. These effects and these all of these different factors were shifting and moving and changing, and he couldn't explain it. And he ended up saying this. He said, no matter how far we calculate, at some time we must say, and this is perceived by the observer. So in other words, the world is in two parts. Okay, the world's in two parts. One being observed by the system, and one being observed by the observer. So when we look at the system, the observed, things are arbitrary, they're precise, they're accurate. These are the laws of physics, and things are repeatable, and except for the observer, this is meaningless. This is meaningless. And he went on to say, the measurement chain ends only when the knowledge of the measurement is registered by an extra physical factor, something outside the physical world. Now, this is where physicists their brains blew up at this point when this happened, because Neumann was basically saying that the only way to really understand this in a measurable way and to factor all of this in is that there has to be a consciousness that is outside of our perception, outside of the brain, the physical brain. There has to be something more, which of course leads us right back into the thing we've talked about so many times before on spiritual healthcare, which is David Chalmers' The Hard Problem. Is consciousness fundamental, or is it emergent? And if it's emergent, it's completely coming from the brain. If it's fundamental, the brain's translating. So their opinion was that you must have the mind. And their question then became, how do we turn the potential into the world that we live in? Now, Neumann was not the only person that came up with this, okay? He was not the only person that came up with this. This Max Planck, who, of course, very famous quantum physicist, said very, very early on, I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as a derivative of consciousness. There's been, as I say, there's been numerous. Let me grab another one here. Consciousness cannot be accounted for in physical terms, for consciousness is absolutely fundamental. That's Schrodinger, okay? That's Schrodinger. So there's multiple people that have all come forward with this information. It's really interesting. And when we start to understand that, when we start to understand this observer effect, and we can begin to understand why there has been so many conflict when it comes to opinions, when it comes to these problems, when it comes to these big questions, because everybody essentially starts to get the evidence of whatever their expectation is, whatever they're observing, whatever wherever their state of mind is headed or leading them. Dr. Dean Radin, who works for the Institute of Noetic Sciences, IONS, he ended up doing an incredible experiment that's been documented all over the world now, called the double slit experiment, which basically changes light particles into basically waves or particles, depending on what the observer is expecting. And it got to the point with him where the experiment was so accurate that he could no longer be in the room when the experiment was happening. He had to bring in new people that didn't have a dog in the fight, because he was just getting the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And as soon as they brought in more people, they ended up with different results. So we can understand how two people, for example, even going into a paranormal setting, whether it be a haunted house or something like that, can have two completely different experiences and then get in a massive fight about it, because they're just having a different experience of the world. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. It just means that they are having a different experience based on their set of expectations. So it's really a deep rabbit hole, as I say. And my partner said something to me recently that I thought was so brilliant. And we were talking about, and I think this applies. I think it's really good. And we were talking about the idea of how much of science, how much of what we do when it comes to, the paranormal, when it comes to just life in general and whatnot, how much of it is what they call that leap of faith, right? Where does that stem from? And he said something to me that was very interesting. He said, you can't take a leap of faith from the platform of intellect. And I thought that was just, all the bells went off for me. I said it was such an aha moment for me. When I realized that's exactly what this is, that we can't take the leap of faith from the platform of intellect, because if we do, then what ends up happening is our brains will start to factor all the things in as to all our resistance, why we can't do it, why this thing isn't possible, why do the experiment if we know this thing is going to be impossible. And I think sometimes with science, although it's such a brilliant tool and we need it and we need to be able to utilize it as a tool to discover the answers in our world, the problem is that we forget that we create a reality and we begin responding to the said reality. And if we can think thoughts basically that govern our emotions, or we can create a feeling using the thought to attract more of the thoughts that we want. And this is one of those things that as we're kind of moving through this world where, thought is shaping our reality, whether we've got a toxic belief or whatever it is that we've got going on, we have the decision to make as to, are we allowing our thinking to govern us to the point where we're, ignoring our emotions, we're forgetting that our thoughts are creating our experience, or can we take a step back and find where that balance is, figure out where that is? It's a big question, and I think it's different for everyone. But when it comes to skeptics being, either, can they be as irrational? Can they be as loopy as the, people who are way to the other side of this stuff, and, where everything's a ghost and everything's paranormal, because we all know there's those people. Everything's a demon. That's a big one. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But won't go there. But yeah, you get those people that are like way on the other extreme, right? And I think we can get that way with skepticism as well, where their explanations become literally so outrageous that Occam's razor becomes, wait a minute, this is something that is psi phenomenon. This is something that has to do with expansion of consciousness and the mind and all of those things. And I think we can head too far in the other direction if we're not careful about it. If we end up swinging too far to the side of complete skepticism, we miss the opportunity to expand into these new areas. Sometimes we'll get people who really take science as it's the Bible of all things, that we know everything, that if it's not in the textbooks, then it doesn't exist. And that's not why science was developed. Science was developed as a tool. It's an opportunity to explore the things we don't get, that we don't understand. And I think, in my opinion, to be able to sit back and say, it's not in the textbooks, we know everything already, I think is a drastic bastardization of science itself. I don't think that's why it was developed. If we took that opinion about, textbooks throughout history, for example, we would still be back with things like slavery. We would still be back with, old forms of medicine that were toxic. We'd still be back. We'd be doing all of these things. We had to evolve the things that we know, and that's what it's there for. So I think science, like skeptics, they serve a great purpose. We have to have checks and balances in this field. We have to be able to back up what we're saying. We have to be able to, talk beyond theory and whatnot. If we're presenting something that is, valid and is going to push people forward, and help the field and all of those things. But we have to take that into consideration. Shadow was saying, or Brandy was saying, I've always been so intellectual, but have always wanted to believe in something like magic. And going into the quantum world, it really, totally, like, there is so much magic that's there, because, we're so conditioned to looking at our current environment and thinking that it's solid. It's not. All we have to do is look under an electron microscope and we realize that every single thing is moving. Everything is moving. There's this underlying stillness, and if we can reach the stillness, you can see the movement. And, I think so many people think that okay, well, nothing is still. We got to hit the stillness. We got to quiet our minds enough in order to see the movement, see the flow. Otherwise, everything just looks static. Everything just looks like it's static. It's just bizarre. I had a really interesting thing happen. I've had this happen a number of times where stuff has kind of shown up out of thin air before, and cases like this have been documented. But I was out for lunch with a friend of mine the one day, and we had our highlighter pens out on the table. And what was so interesting was that we heard this clunk, and we felt this something fall underneath the table. And we looked under the table, and one of the highlighter pens that had been sitting in the center of our lunch table, we were at Denny's of all places, had been sitting in the middle of the table, had fallen under the table. And it was the strangest thing. And the only thing that we could really surmise was basically the pen just fell through the table. We don't know why. But we felt it hit our feet, and we went under the table to get it. I mean, there was nothing on the table that was moving, but it was just like, it just dropped. It was the weirdest thing. But we've got to take a hard look at what we know and be able to challenge it, which is why I did the paradigm video about the fire the other day for you guys, because when we can start to understand that these weird little clicks and glitches and whatever happen, and that we have control over our perception, then we can start to reshape our reality, reshape our thinking, reshape our emotions, and bam, our perception changes. It's pretty cool. It's really, really cool. So yeah, but that's my perspective on skeptics, is that I think sometimes we get so we really do have over and over and over again evidence of what it is that we're believing and that we're focused on show up again and again in our reality. And it comes back to that whole look where you want to go. And, that old driving lesson, you're driving in your car or whatever, and the teacher is going to turn around and say, if you look at that pylon, instead of looking around the pylon and looking further down the road as to where you want to go, you're going to drive into the pylon. And that's exactly what happens with the world and the universe, where, if you look at the thing that you don't want, or you look at what you're expecting, or you look whatever it is, you're going to hit it. you're going to attract evidence of it. It's pretty wild. And Marge is saying, I'm open to listening to pretty much anything. Yeah, and it's a really good thing, and we really do know the truth when we hear it. We really do, and it hits our ears right when we hear the truth. We really do, and I think we have an understanding of that as we as we're kind of receiving information. You kind of know when someone's telling you the truth, right? Like even if you don't want to hear it, even if you don't want to hear it, when somebody's telling you the truth, and you're like, I don't know. But yeah, so I think we have to be very conscious of that, and being conscious enough to turn around and say, especially in today's world right now, we have to be conscious of turning around and saying, man, I didn't know that before. I'm going to change my opinion. You can change your mind. You can change your mind. It doesn't mean you have to lose face. You can change your mind with new information that's coming in. If you continue to back up the old stuff, and with somebody bringing in this new input and this new information, this is what I always tell people if I've got a skeptic or something like that in my audience, is that if you get information, if you get new information, you have to be able to factor it in. You can't shut it down. You can't cherry pick. You have to be able to factor it in. Is this something I need to pay attention to? And if this is something that's relevant, the person knows what they're talking about, you might want to pay attention, because at that point, there's something else going on. So I wanted to read a little bit for you guys today from Ask and It Is Given about this subject, because I thought this was a brilliant segment, and I thought this was so relevant for us today. So check this out. Your desire is the natural result of the contrast in which you are focused. The entire universe exists to inspire the next new desire. And so, if you're trying to avoid your own desire, you're attempting to move contrary to universal forces. And even if you are able to suppress it here and there, more are continually evolving within you, for you have come forth into this body and into this wonderful contrasting environment with the clear intent of focusing energy that creates worlds through the powerful focused lens of your perspective. And so, nothing in all of the universe is more natural than your continuing desire. I think it's just, that's what it is. That's what it is. You are going to get what you think about and what you are and what you're projecting. And the universe doesn't have a no button. It doesn't have a no button. It just has a yes button. So it's like everything that, you know, you're focused on that thing that you don't want, you're going to get evidence of that. You're focused on the thing that you do want, you'll get evidence of that. You get to pick. You get to allow it or not. That's the fun part. It's also the bad news. So, yeah, it's also the bad news. So anyway, our affirmations, you guys, we got to go into the day with all of those with the right energy. So everybody take a breath. I'm a channel of peace and well-being, and my need for peace is abundantly met. I unconditionally accept, love, and appreciate myself and who I am. I recognize and am grateful for the abundance that is constantly flowing into my life, which I can choose to allow or not. I feel with every breath a sense of peace and love, and I help others by maintaining and tending to my connection with Source as much as possible. This well-being is accessible to me, even in a sea of uncertainty. At this moment, all is well. I'm able to liberate myself from my past and live with peace and serenity. I can see and appreciate all the beauty and abundance of life around me. I am able to embrace love while letting go of fear. And I find peace with the soothing silence of my inner being. And everybody take a breath. I hope you guys have an amazing day today. I hope this was beneficial for you all. And tomorrow we've got lots more. So if you guys please share this stuff around, share the videos, share the playlist on YouTube, youtube.com/EntitySeeker. All of the classes, they're all there. They're all there, as well as on EntitySeeker.ca. It's updated every single day for everybody. And as I say, stay tuned because I'm going to be posting a video later today. With a new lesson with some fire stuff. So that's going to be really fun too. If you guys want more of my fire performances and things like that, my website for that is called snakeandpire.com. So snakeandpire.com. And it's got tons of stuff. We do videos, you know, he does the music, and then I do the choreography and stuff like that, and do the fire performing it. So it's so much fun. It's so much fun to do. So anyway, so it's all there. And I've performed with some really, really cool people, really cool and talented people over the years. It's been really fun. So anyway, thank you all, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning on Spiritual Healthcare. Bye, everybody.